Why settle for less when you can learn from the best? Watch this video to learn the best technique to do reorder paragraphs in PTE with Rajesh Johar.
Yep. So a few things. So when we do the reorder paragraph, first thing is finding first sentence is not difficult usually. Okay, as we talked about, first sentence is independent. That's the basic thing. But independent sentences can be in the middle. So just looking at independent, or they may be, looks like a couple of sentences might be independent. Okay, so yeah, it can help, but it won't be the only measure. One thing is it's independent. Other thing is first sentence define something or define a concept. When we talk about, suppose about some environmental issues or global warming, or maybe talk about something. So before starting to describing it, we define what the issue actually is. Okay, we define what the issue actually is. So first sentence in reorder is also sometime you can see a definition. So a definition can be in the first sentence. Sometime it's usually always independent, but sometimes it can be a definition. How a definition can be given? It can be given through an appositive. Appositive means a noun group defining a noun. I'll tell you about it. Okay, I'll tell you about it. What's a positive and these kinds of things. So there are usually a couple of words written after a noun. Immediately after the concept, you write a group of a couple of words. Sometimes they explain the concept in other words. So that's a kind of brief definition. That's what we call a positive. So they can be a definition, but it will still needs to be independent. Another thing about finding the first sentence is sometimes first sentence gives a background, some background of something. And everybody talks about a background, but what's the background? Background is a brief history. Background is what? A brief history. For example, we talk about environment, we talk about global warming. So sometime when we start writing about global warming, we give you a brief history. We say over the years, in recent decades, or you can say over the past 1.5 century or something like this. So we don't tell everything in detail, but just give a brief overview that brings us to the current point. A brief history, okay? And what? That takes us to the current point. That brings us to the current point. Yeah, so that's the background. So everybody saying background, maybe many people you heard the background, but what actually a background is, it's a brief history. And that brings us to the current point. Now, what about global warming? Okay. So these are a few things that can help you find the first sentence. Another thing, suppose if you see that there are 2-3 independent sentences, 2-3 sentences look like independent. So then what can be the, I'll give you another thing. Another is there is a very important verb form. An important verb form. That's used a lot in the first sentence, a verb form. What verb form is that? That's usually perfect tense, usually perfect tense form. It can be present perfect tense, it can be a past perfect tense. You may have has, have, or had, but sometime you may have been, or sometime you may not, and past participle. We call third form, or you can say past participle, or you can call it do, did, done. They are the same thing. So these three things, any two out of these three, and if you find the sentence is independent, and if you find this verb form, it's very likely to be the first sentence of the reorder paragraph. Why? Because if you look at the nature of this tense, it brings us to the current point. That's what I told you what background is. What is background? A brief history that brings us to the current point. And what do perfect tenses do? perfect tenses always bring us to the current point. They start a little bit in behind in time. They start in the past, but they connect us to the present. For example, you know, he has been doing, he has done it. It means he has been doing over some time. You can say, I have studied this for years. It means somebody has studied it and they are now studying. So it talks about something over a little bit time to the current point of time. That's why I told you give a background, and the very effective verb form that gives you background or brief history is perfect tense, present or past perfect tense. Sometimes can be future as well. This is very, very important. So if you see the sentence is independent and you see this verb form, there might be multiple independent sentences, but if you see this verb form, yes, you can easily find it then. If this verb form is independent, that's the first sentence. Sometimes even simple present is used as well. There can be other thing. It's not that always it. Simple present, you know, simple present tense can also be, you know, first form of verb or S or ES. So we'll talk about this. Let's just talk about the present. Simple present doesn't give you usually a background, but maybe. So most important form is perfect tense form. Simple present can also be in. So these are a few things which can help you, certainly help you find the first sentence and also give you an idea. So sometimes it looks quite easy to find the first sentence, but if you find 2, 3 sort of independent sentences, suppose examiners don't give you pronouns, don't give you some, you know, connectors and something, and then they give you, looks like the sentence looks independent, and then then the person is all of in the middle of everything. Oh, this is the thing. Okay. Another thing is you can quickly have a read quickly. Another point I'll tell you, if I give them numbers, so this is, I'll say point number 1, this is point number 2, this is my point number 3, this is my point number 4, and my point number 5, I'm going to tell you is about what? I'll say quickly skim through all sentences to get an idea what they are all about, what they're all about. So once we get some idea what these sentences are about, okay, if you get an idea what all these sentences are about, now you think yourself, okay, what can be the better idea? Next, think about what can be a better. So next, think about what can be a better topic sentence. And what is a topic sentence? Topic that introduces a term. So topic sentence, it introduces a term. So give background is what? Giving background is introducing. So introducing a term. So you know what introduces a term, but it must be independent. So what is a topic sentence? Better topic sentence that introduces a term. Okay, or defines it, or gives a background. And I told you what's background. Okay. I'm sure not many people will be telling these kinds of things, that what's actually background is. There's a background. What's a background? Okay. And when these are the, you know the name, but when it doesn't make real sense, it doesn't help. When something doesn't make real sense, it doesn't help. even if you know the term background. So that's the thing. Okay. And we'll be talking about how last sentence. Now, if we talk about the first sentence, let's have a talk a little bit about the last sentence. And then we'll do a few reorders, okay? And I've already told about how we can, organize sentences, find a link between sentences. I'll be talking about other things, a few other things. So the last sentence. It's also depend upon what kind of text. So it also depends the kind of text, okay? So first sentence, last sentence, sometimes it's also dependent on what kind of text I'm using. But some of the common things are it either resolves an issue. Sometimes it resolves an issue. If it gives a sort of solution, resolution, so it means you can have a sort of resolution or a solution, some kind of thing. But sometimes there is no solution. So it gives you another direction. Because something didn't work out, so it gives you, so now we need to look the other side. Sometimes give you another direction because something didn't work. So these kinds of things can be there. Okay, so either solves the issue or because the issue wasn't solved, so gives an alternate. Gives an alternative. Okay, so some of these things you can keep in mind. So so now let's do it. So when we read the first one, we always say, okay, it will, it also will. So these two words says something is before. Give him some singular male name, something worthwhile to live for. If he fails conditions, he, again, somebody, not the first sentence, something is before. It may have been due to troubles in his home, his school, or unsympathetic and hostile relative. Okay. The finest asset any child can have is a happy home. What's this? The finest asset. As I told you, the first sentence can be a definition. Okay, a definition. What is the finest asset? A happy home. Finest success for a child is what? So it's a kind of definition. As I earlier told you, you won't get definition, something is defined as the finest asset of a child is defined as, no, forget. You won't get this definition in this way, no sentence or no writing will tell you the finest asset is defined as da da da. No, forget. So what actually it is? It's in other words rather than using the word definition, but it tells us. So first sentence can have a sort of definition and it's an independent sentence. Any child, the finest asset any child can have is a happy home. So it's a kind of metaphor, means A is B, sort of definition. So number 3, even you see, it's a perfect candidate for being the first sentence. If he exists now, next one is what? Now, this thing will be explained in the next sentence. Most likely, this will be explained in the next sentence. If you see anything explained, what is such environment? As I told you, such means something. What? Such environment means a happy home will enable him, him is a child, to develop strength and stability of character, thereby teaching him to face the future without fear or undue anxiety. So after 3 comes number 5. All right. So such environment will this. And then you add another thing. It will also give him, it mean what? A happy home. So I told you explanation can be in one sentence. You know, I told you the topic sentence then is explanation. Explanation can be in one sentence, but it can be in more than one sentences. More than one sentence, 2 sentences, sometimes 3. So that's another explanation, further explanation. So 3, 5, 1. Now we are left with 2 and 4. So now if he fails, it may have been due to troubles in his home, his school, or unsympathetic and hostile relative. If he exhibits good judgment in later years, you say, it will give him something worthwhile to live for. If he exhibits good judgment in later years, much of the credit must go to those who trained him. It will sit after 1. Positive, it will lead to this one. Worthwhile to live for. If he exhibits good judgment in later years, much of the credit will go to those who trained him. And what? If he fails, and again, the talk comes to his home or asset. It started with this and it ended with this as well. You know, the real good writing, it becomes quite secular. So last one is number 2. Number 2 also talks about the same thing in which in number 1, a happy home or home. Number 2 also talks about home. If he fails, it may have been due to troubles in his home or an extension of home such as school, unsympathetic, hostile relative, and that's it. It means this is all important. It started with this, ended with this. 3, 5, 1, 4, 2. Okay.